Hello, I'm Jennifer Cassinson with Build Exact, and here today with Grant Fuhlenbach with Go First. And we're super excited to be here with you today. We're going to wait just a minute as people come in to get started before we get started with our webinar. But hello, Grant, and welcome.
Hey, Jennifer. Thanks. Happy to be here.
And as you guys come in and get settled, please tell us hello in the chat and tell us where you're calling in from, please. We'd love to hear from you throughout the webinar. So please send us any comments or questions. And we'll get started in just a minute. Knoxville, Tennessee. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining us.
Where are you based out of, Jennifer?
I am in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, nice.
And you're in mountain time.
Yeah, I'm out in Colorado.
Yeah, awesome. Colorado is doing some cool things to spur housing development. So a lot of things on the agenda there. So that's really cool.
Yeah, we
Well,
definitely need it too, just with the
yes,
sheer amount of
that's true. To drive
people.
down the cost because it's, yeah, exactly right. Well, I think that's what everybody's interested in. So, well, thanks again, Grant, for joining. And I'll just start again. I'm Jennifer with Build Exact, and we're here with Grant Fullenbach with Go First. Thanks for joining us, Grant. Just a two seconds. Tell us what Go First is and what you're all about.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in a nutshell, we're a little bit more than a marketing agency. We help builders systematize the things that generally uh, remodeling and building companies struggle with. So lead flow, sales operations, and client retention. When we do that through workflow automation, AI, and just system overhaul, really.
So I have known Grant for a little while, and I can tell you guys as an audience, no one produces as much content or as good a content as Grant and Go First. So very, very impressive for our audience, for the design build remodelers, for the custom home builders. It's an insane resource. So you guys have to go dig into what Grant is doing. Please, it'll only benefit you. So again, Grant, thanks for joining. And I'm going to start off with some easy, fun, short, quick questions. What is your go-to construction technology resource?
That's a good question. NAHB is really powerful, just in terms of finding who the right people are in specific like niche specialties. But more often than not, I also get a lot of info from like Facebook. So the right Facebook groups, like specifically with like home building and tips and tricks there. And then Reddit too. Reddit's phenomenal for just getting a lot of digestible insight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to keep up with Reddit, but it is a great resource. So how about podcasts? What do you listen to?
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
I really like Remodelers on the Rise. I like Modern Craftsmen. Those guys do some really cool stuff, like NS Builders, if you're familiar with that company. And then who else? I honestly like Contractor Evolution, Breakthrough Academy. They do, I know who was the guy, Benji. Benji left that podcast recently, but they've done some really cool interviews. Um, so if
Awesome.
you're up for a drive or anything, or even just
Yeah,
taking a shower or
yeah.
whatever, it's
Tune
fun.
in. That's right. Okay, so what technology do you think will have the biggest impact on the industry this year?
So this is going to get kind of nerdy. And people, I think, would just throw out like a general term with AI. But I actually think that there's this more specific term called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. And if you've ever heard the tool or played around with it, Notebook LM by Google, it's basically RAG. So what that means is you can upload YouTube videos, PDFs, floor plans, takeoffs, really anything into this thing, and quickly ask it, hey, when's the last time I met with Jeff? What did we talk about? What is his to-do list for next Tuesday? Things like that. Um, and Notebook LM is just one of these tools out there. You can even make one yourself, for your SOPs or whatnot. Um, but yeah, I think that subsect of AI is just going to skyrocket how knowledge is shared.
So, okay, you're talking at, I don't even know, I can't reach the level that you're talking to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in terms of where I think the industry is. So we have our listeners and they probably have a computer somewhere that they use sometimes. I'm sure
Totally.
they do sometimes. They have their portable, they carry around their phones. But in terms of them thinking about AI and knowing when they're using AI, that's kind of a gap. What do you think about that? And how are you pulling people along and how are you getting people to understand? And you've got AI in your business model. So talk about all
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah, it's a good question. And that's like one of the first things that we kind of address, in like our process, we do like a gap analysis or a gap assessment first. And then we go into, if it's a fit, we do like a 6-week program implementing, like the critical systems that that business would need to reach their ultimately where they want to go. And then we migrate over to a more substantial model. But um, the first where I was going with that is in that gap assessment, the first step, we always highlight what does your current tech stack look like? What tools are you using right now? Because that we don't want to, implement things that are, like you said, just widening that gap, widening that tech adoption. What we really want to do is meet them where they're at and slowly methodologically like add change management in there. So it's not, blowing, giving people so much more homework that they are feeling like they're taking on another job. Uh,
Yeah, so I mean, when you start talking to people, do you introduce your service as an AI service? And do people have a reaction to that? Like, how is it, like, if you're speaking to our
yeah,
audience right now, how do you
yeah,
get them over that hurdle?
totally. I think AI, as much of a buzzword as it is, it's just another tool in your tool belt. Or, when it's used right, it's a great tool for the job to get the outcome that you want. And when it's not being used or when it's not, you know, it's just creating pretty photos and maybe a video for you. Um, and so
Yeah.
we're I would say we're kind of the way that we position it is we are AI enhanced, but we get you expected outcomes.
Yeah, so we at Build Exact are about to launch a new product offering, Build Exact 2.0. And in that, we have some AI features that are to me that are mind blowing. And I think that will help people overcome this because they'll see what AI can do for them. So you can actually upload a floor plan and AI will do the takeoff for you. I did it yesterday with a very large floor plan,
Cool.
and the amount of accuracy it took. It not only did the whole first level, which it would do all the levels, but named each area. It automated the scale, took the scale off of the plan that was uploaded. Then it outlined every area, named each area, and put in the measurements for each area. And there was one part where the bathroom, it didn't capture the shower, but it was like click to edit where I would just pull down the corner and it captured all of it, updated it. And that took a fairly time consuming process into a matter of like seconds. So things like that I think will just help people along and fall in love with AI and its capabilities.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, and sort of like this, I forget, I think it's Ray Kurzweil or somebody who says like how fast technology is evolving. You're looking at that and you're looking at it really closely. And I feel like you're probably like an expert that I would ask about this. Is like, what are you most optimistic about? And where is technology headed?
It's a good question. I guess from an optimism or a very positive perspective, we're just kind of touching the surface of not necessarily what's possible, but in regards of what problems we can solve with these tools, right?
Mhm.
Like, my I worked for a company previously called Pix4D, and it's drone software. So basically, surveyors use it, civil engineers use it, guys in contractors, builders use it all the time. Fly a drone over a site, take a bunch of photos, and then turn that into a usable 3D model, from which you can do calculations and tons of other stuff. And the adoption of that is it was really interesting to look at because some surveyors were all about it. Like, oh, you're
Mhm.
telling me I
Yeah,
don't have to walk this 80-acre,
right.
plot and with the tower and everything and do all these manual calculations. They ate it up. Others were like, I don't necessarily trust that. Like the old way, I know I can put my name on it, I can stamp it, all that stuff. Um, and I think as AI is getting better and better, and just the way that we're interacting with it, as humans are interacting with it, I think that, the problems we will be able to overcome and the adoption of that, it won't be a trust issue. It will be a creativity issue. I only have so many hours in the day. How do I use this tool, or how do I use the tools in my tool belt right now to solve all of these problems?
For sure. That's a really good way to put it. And the value that you can add to a project, just as the technology is evolving exponentially, so is the value that you can add, right?
Yeah,
As
yeah,
a human, right? So, and that's what I read in an Amazon article a long time ago is that when the way Amazon looks at it is that it's just enhancing human capabilities. So it's allowing us to have our power over projects that much, improving that ability that much more.
oh yeah,
So an interesting way to look at it. And actually, and I'm going to talk about another feature that we're about to reveal is that when you do an estimate, we have an AI estimate reviewer tool. So you can have your estimate costings there and you can have it review and you can have it review for specific items. So I want you to review this for health and safety or environmental standards or things like that. And it will go through your estimate identify, let's say it identifies 12 different things. There's not a smoke detector in this area, or you forgot a smoke detector
Ooh,
in this area or
yeah,
something. It will say that and it puts it into a checklist. So then you have this checklist to go down and you click it off as you go through and say, oh, I've added the smoke alarm here now and we're good. And you check it off and you've got this reviewer and it's enhancing the accuracy as well. So
yeah.
that's one thing that people are concerned about. So speaking of concerns, what do you think are the concerns? What do you think are the biggest challenges?
I would say, that application is a really cool one, and I think that kind of covers a lot of people's objections and concerns with just AI and tech adoption as a whole, right? It's this fear of it's a risk mitigation. It's, how do I know that this tool or that deliverable is as good as I need it to be? And if you already have your checks and balances in place around that deliverable, that is so cool. And I think that's where a lot of the hesitation comes from. You could have Google or ChatGPT create a PhD level write up on whatever topic, but unless you actually trust the sources or trust that the information in that's going in, it's kind of trash in, trash out, that whole philosophy.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm going to switch gears because just looking at that and thinking about, this is a trust thing, and what the market conditions that we're in require you to have that accuracy and the trust with the client and being able to trust your suppliers all, as well. So the
Yeah.
customers that you're working with, what do you see? What is the current sentiment, and what are you seeing, and what is there any advice you would give them as our audience today?
Yeah. Like one of the biggest areas that I think what we're talking about today can really make a lasting impact is, you know, this idea of knowledge sharing. And for lack of a better word, that's an SOP, right? So whether it's task delegation or just teaching someone how to do something, teaching someone a new process, I think AI is a phenomenal tool for helping you visualize and just, you know, get your process into a format that's digestible by other people,
Mhm.
specifically other people on your team. And then, of course, it's also a great tool to help hold them accountable to that SOP.
Yeah.
Um,
And so you said you're in the Colorado market.
yeah,
Are there things specific that you're seeing as challenges or opportunities? And like I said, the sentiment, some of the reports that I'm seeing and just the research from the remodeling industry or the associations,
yeah,
NHB and such, is that sentiment is staying pretty strong until like the last couple of weeks. And we're starting to see a little bit of drop off from both consumer sentiment and contractor sentiment. And so, how do you advise your customers to what tools do they have at their fingertips to make sure that they're bridging that gap and that they're making sure that they're solidifying their business, and then also bridging the gap in the accuracy and trust.
yeah, that's a good question. Ultimately, it two remodelers might be working on similar projects, but their audience could be entirely different. They could even be in the same, location, same territory, but the problems that they're solving for their clients could be incredibly different. And the way that I would approach that, like you brought up here in Colorado, one key driver, especially here in Northern Colorado, is aging in place. So, and it's all over, right? But the the category is basically that people want to stay in their homes as they age, and they want to feel safe and secure and have a builder or a remodeler who they trust to help them make those things happen. And there's so many tools out there that can help you not only understand all of the criteria that goes into that type of certification, but also how to market yourself as such, how to make sure that you get in front of that audience, what your messaging should be, how to, create an estimate, an estimate, a proposal so that it matches that specific type of persona. Um, and yeah, it's just I would say that is one thing that a lot of builders and a lot of remodelers are kind of skipping over is, this idea of I don't want to call it a trend, but it kind of is, this aging in place thing, the silver tsunami. Um, jump on that. There's so many other things out there that are similar to that, and it's hyper localized too.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that too, just to your point, a lot of people I think you probably do some really, really surface level research to find out how long somebody's been in their house, when was the last time they did a remodel, like the
mhm.
equity they have in their house, and you could
Oh
tap
yeah.
into that to do or to get into a remodeling project. You could offer energy savings programs, improve the building envelope or whatever the performance is of the home. You could also look at the aging in place aspect. And then the third thing, which is kind of scary, but just hardening against wildfire for wildfire
Yeah.
resistance.
Oh, sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so there's a lot of unique opportunities. And so when we talk about quantifying the benefits for contractors and builders in putting processes in place, and I know that you've got some distinct processes, how do you help them understand the impact on their business, not only in a one-off project basis, but on an ongoing sustaining their business?
Yeah, that again, great question. Um, so I use my background again, not the drone thing, but is in like revenue operations and sales ops. So I'm pretty proficient at putting dashboards together and reporting, and that is one of the key components to everything that we do is, show not tell. So we like to show the impact that we're having with those systems in regards of, all the metrics, the KPIs that we're significantly impacting. One of the first things that we do in that first gap analysis is identifying, their customer's current state. So we have about 12 different metrics, financial metrics that we, you know, have a firm understanding in. And because of that, over time, we can generally see the true impact that our systems are having, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. And that's been really, really a fun just thing to build out with our clients.
So you're talking about, I mean, RevOps is so unique, and I would even imagine that a lot of our customers don't even know what RevOps, like
Yeah.
that's for or how to use it or whatever.
Yeah.
If you had to tell them, like when they're thinking about the data that's important to them, what are those data sets, and what should they make as a priority?
Yeah. It's a good question. You know, Understanding the health of your business is super critical nowadays. I mean, it's always been, but it is incredibly critical now. As it's hard to own a construction business. Insurance costs are on the rise, material costs, labor costs, you name it, right? Software costs.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is critical, vital that you have an understanding of not just your revenue, where that revenue is coming from, what your conversion rate looks like from your leads, but your gross profit, net profit, total overhead, cost of goods sold, those things that if you just went on Google and typed in what are the 10 critical KPIs or ten metrics every business should know, that's it. If you should know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and some of them are hard. They're hard to calculate. You might be working off of a spreadsheet, you might be working off of Build Exact, might be working off of, a P&L statement from your bookkeeper. But it at the end of the day, if it's your business, you should, in my opinion, have a very firm grasp of how you're doing and where you need to, pull a lever to improve.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to do. And I would say that a lot of our customers don't have their arms around that, which, it's hard because they're small business owners and they are doing what they love and enjoy, which may be more of what happens on site, on a job site, not
Yeah.
what happens in the computer or, with the data, which is what, which is certainly where Build Exact can help out. But
Yeah.
so with Build Exact, it's a pretty holistic platform and covers all the way from design to final invoice and, all of the different aspects of change orders to the scheduling to the takeoffs to the estimation process to ordering, connecting to a dealer and ordering. Where do you see that builders need technology the most? Where and how should they be prioritizing it to grow their business?
The I would say one of the biggest areas of improvement is with client communication and anything that is client facing. So I'm talking about, initial lead inquiry, whether it's a form on your website, whether it's an in-person meeting, right? That you had a face-to-face meeting with somebody at a networking group who is looking for remodelers for their kitchen remodel, anything like that. I would say that one of the biggest areas, that one of the biggest gaps is just, you know, this not even over dependence, but just lack of systems, lack of organization when it comes to, making sure your client has the best experience possible and that they're well versed in your process, well versed in the milestones, all the work that it's going to take to make their dream a reality, as cliche as that sounds. But I would say that is one of the biggest gaps that I'm seeing is that remodelers, contractors, so many companies out there just it's not that they don't want to provide that top level of experience, it's that they just don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's interesting too, and it makes me think of the customization piece, which I think AI gives us for the first time this big opportunity to customize more than we ever have in the past. The personalization, bring in personalization, um, and then you also talked about one of the things that you mentioned as costs are increasing, software costs are increasing. Well, part of our relaunch will be new pricing with customization. So someone can walk into a base level subscription that could be lower cost or more accessible, but then have the opportunity to upgrade as their business grows or as it necessitates additional features. So I think that level of customization will be easier with with AI facilitating it, AI powered. And that's really unique. And I don't know what you're seeing in terms of that, but the personalization feature and a lot of remodeling technology is going to make some, I think, leaps and bounds over the next 12 months.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just for an example of that, like this was it last fall, we remodeled the upstairs of the house that I'm in. And, I posted on we just moved to Fort Collins around that time. And so I posted on Word of Mouth Fort Collins, which was a Facebook group. I think I had 140 people DM or comment on that post in 40 hours,
Wow.
which is insane. Like,
Yes.
and then, you cherry pick a handful and then they come to your house and do measurements. And it's so apparent to me how quickly you can identify contractors and builders who are at a level that you are comfortable working with versus those who are, it's just like, oh, could you leave my house, please?
Yes, it's true. I
Yeah,
was talking to Angie Hicks from the founder of Angie, and we talked about the same thing. It's like dating. It's like like you're set up on a blind date, and the second you see that person across the restaurant, you're like, how can I bow out of this?
totally. Yeah.
So that's one. So you did mention that one of the things that our audience has a hard time is kind of understanding their clients and how do they need to improve in that area, which you kind of went through that, but you just published something that is kind of exploded, just like you said. So tell our listeners what you published and how they can access it.
Yeah. So, you know, I created this thing called the it's again cliche, it's the ultimate home building checklist. And it's a gigantic PDF, but it's an aggregate of tons of tips and tricks that I've, accumulated from interviews, from Facebook groups, from, AI, and I've done my best to break it out in by phase of project. So, even as granular as what your role should be as a homeowner during phase three of a project and what you should expect from others, what deliverables you should be expecting, all of those levels, as well as what are some things that you should keep in mind when you're starting to, think about redoing a closet. Like, how many outlets should you have? Do you want an outlet for your watches, for your handheld, um, battery powered vacuum, all of that stuff? So
Yeah.
it's like a little masterpiece of my OCD.
Nice. Grant, it has been such a pleasure talking to you today, and thank you all for joining us. Where can people find you and the great content that you produce?
Yeah, absolutely. Beyond the Bid is kind of the name of our podcast. It's if you just type that in on Google, it'll pop up. We have a newsletter, and then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And if you're on NAHB, just feel free to shoot out there too.
Amazing. Thank you again, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks.